this is your first time, well, welcome to this module of how to write literature reviews. And if this is not your first time, well, welcome back. My name is Carlos Leyva Sanchez. As I was saying, welcome everyone. Very exciting to have you guys join. First of all, let's start introducing each other. We know we're going to talk about how to write a narrative review or a literature review. As we know, as it has several names. We'll look into all the different topics and all the different genres of publications. But before that, the most important thing is that we would like for everyone to feel comfortable and welcome. Everyone is welcome here. Everyone is absolutely welcome. Everyone is more than welcome to ask questions. Everyone is welcome to voice their opinions, and we're here to learn. Everyone is here to learn. We have people with different levels of expertise and experience. So we're gonna start with. I'm gonna give a brief introduction. We're gonna have today our first foundational lecture. Then we're going to establish what is what are going to be the expectations for this module. My name is, like I mentioned, is Carlos Leyva Sanchez. I'm a translational and clinical researcher at The Ohio State University at this time. Potentially moving into a different space, more from transitioning more from out of academia into private industry. But that's still in the move. My experience is I have a lot more experience in clinical trials in academic publications, but academic publications remain the heart of the objective of academia. So with this, we want to introduce the core focus of the session. We're going to familiarize with research naive. What is from anyone from research? This session is meant to be informative and formative for every level, for all the levels of expertise, including research naive mentees, with the essential principles behind what is a narrative review and the foundational literature of the search strategies. So in here, we want to highlight the importance of orienting, and because mindset is everything, guys. Mindset is everything. My niche is, my background is in family and general medicine. But I have dabbled in several specialties, primarily, and currently my research niche relies on neuroplasticity. I'm a neuroplasticity researcher, and I have a deep passion for holistic and integrative medicine. So treating patients as a whole and viewing the body as a whole, like a system of 11 biological systems. And I have the core belief that the nervous system is the master regulator of all the other 10 biologic systems. So that's the core of my research, of my personal research. But like I mentioned, I've worked with endocrinology, I've worked with cardiology, I've worked with I presently work with hematology and oncology, so a lot of leukemias. I've worked with community-based participatory trials, with clinical trials from all phases, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, not phase 4 so much, but we're going to look into all of that. Today's class it spans from 2 to 2.5 hours. It's going to emphasize the integration of what the mentorship consists of. So what can you expect from me? It is, like I mentioned, it's interactive learning. I don't like to hear myself talk too much. So I like to hear you guys talk as well. So please feel comfortable to open your mic whenever you need to. You don't need to raise your hand. You just need to open your mic when you find the space and say and comment whatever you need to comment. So we're gonna view what a systematic scientific writing means, not a systematic review. What systematic writing is not the same thing. So in context, the goal is to ensure that everyone understands the scope of today's session and the scope of the course of the 6 modules, because we're going to see each other for 6 weeks, including all the pedagogical intentions, like the teaching intentions and the relevance within the broader program. So this module centers on, I understand, an immune dysregulation of heart failure. That is the topic that unites us here today. It's an exciting topic. I absolutely love. In functional medicine, we study a lot the immune system because it's inflammation, right? Functional medicine, if you have never heard of it, is just another way to say deep in general medicine. But we study all the methods of inflammation. So the immune system is certainly something that attracts me a lot. It is a very complex topic. It requires some foundational understandings and some biological underpinnings that are going to be needed for us to put ourselves in context. So anywhere from the introductory activities that we do today to the technical skills development, we're going to look into it more in depth. So moreover, I want to reinforce the message that this program builds progressive competencies. You're going to see a lot of things that are new. You're going to be introduced to a lot of topics that are new. If you've never done research before, don't be scared. Don't be scared. Everyone starts at a very, very new, very research naive position. A lot of concepts are completely new. I remember I used to be scared of the search strings in PubMed. I didn't even know how to arrive to them. It was very overwhelming. It can feel very overwhelming at the beginning. I guarantee you, it is a lot easier than what we think. It is very detailed, but it's not complex. It's not a complex process. So you'll see once we start fragmenting all the pieces of it. But yeah, this is meant for everyone to develop a logistical anchor and for everyone to feel motivated. To feel motivated so we can do this together. The goal is, of course, in the end, to have a publication, to publish something together, a high quality narrative review, and we're going to do that together. So that being said, I've talked a lot, so let's start. I want to hear from you guys. Like I mentioned, my name is Carlos. You can mention what is your preferred name. My academic training level, I'm an MD and Masters of Science. I'm an MD and MSc. I did a Masters of Science in Translational Pharmacology with a specialization in clinical pharmacology and clinical trial design. I have a couple other diplomates that I've done in teaching and higher education. I've done a couple of diplomats in research modules. I've done a couple of other diplomats, but those are my academic credentials. I'm an MD from Honduras. I'm from the beautiful country of Honduras, Central America, in the heart of the American continent. I grew up in a beautiful, beautiful beach. Clear water, white sand. It's a beautiful bay. It's awesome. My prior research exposure, I've worked with I've taught several modules on IMG Helping Hands, but I also work with the College of Medicine at The Ohio State University. I'm a clinical instructor of research and community medicine for the for the College of Medicine students and the College of Pharmacy students at The Ohio State University. My exposure in research is primarily more into it's more in clinical trials, like I mentioned. That's why you won't see a lot of my name publications, but we're starting to work on that now. And location-wise, well, I mentioned I'm from Honduras, Central America, but I'm located in Columbus, Ohio. And I'm going to let you guys to do the 2 truths and 1 lie, so we can introduce each other very quickly, if you feel comfortable to do it, or the other option is just mention one curious thing about yourself. For example, I can mention my 2 truths and a lie is I have 17 siblings. I have traveled through half the countries of the American continent, and what will be my third aspect? I can say I can touch my nose with my tongue. Those are my 2 truths and a lie. Which one do you think is a lie? Vote.
17 siblings part.
17 siblings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
17
that is
siblings.
hard to believe.
Okay. Anyone else?
I don't know. I kind of just want to watch you touch your nose with your tongue on camera right now.
Okay, so the lie is that I have traveled through half of the countries of of all the American continent. I actually have 17 siblings, between full and half siblings, and I'm the youngest actually. So it's interesting. And yes, I can touch my nose with my tongue. And yeah, I've yet to travel to more countries. I love to travel because I love food and people. I those are two of the things that I like the most. So um, yeah, we'll dedicate the next couple of minutes to introduce yourself. You can mention whatever you want about yourself, and you can say your name or your preferred name and whatever is on the screen. So the first person I have on my screen is let me see. Oh, I can't see it here. Let me check it out from here. Okay, the first person I see from Joan. Is it Joan? George. Joan, George, not sure. And then no, sorry, not he. I see Joan Tom's George, Joan JOANTOMS George. If you're there, and then if after that, after Joan, I have Faud, and please correct me if I'm mispronouncing your names also. Faud. So if Joan, if you can hear us, if you would like to introduce yourself, and then we have Faud.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Joanne. It's pronounced Joanne George. Yeah, and I'm from India, from the state of Kerala, southern part of India. And I am an MBBS graduate. Is currently working as a junior resident. And this is my first time in research experience. Yeah, so that's it.
Nice. What is your residency in?
Pardon?
You said you're a junior resident?
Yeah, I'm
What is your
currently
residency
working,
in?
yeah, working as a junior resident in the Department of Nephrology.
Nice. Nephrology.
Yeah.
Interesting. And would you like to share something interesting about yourself?
Nothing much.
Okay, that's fair. If you remember further, then later, then you can say that. You can share it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, John. Next is Faud, and then I have Griffin.
Okay, so my name is Fuad. I think that's the most interesting thing about me. My name is actually a trap. It's spelled Faud, but then it's pronounced Fuad. So Fuad it's from Arabic, so it comes with a U there before the A. Okay, so I'm a third year medical student. I'm originally from Ghana. I'm doing my rotations right now. Past step one. Currently studying for step two. Looking to match into auto. But I just joined just to get more research and more publications because it's highly competitive, and getting publications help you, achieve your dream. Two truths and one lie. Two truths. I'll go. No, oh, okay. So two truths and one lie. I support Real Madrid. I am the first of three siblings, and I'm the 47th president of the United States. So that's obvious. That's obvious. Okay. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, so clearly your lie is being the president of the United States.
Yes, yes. We know
Right.
who currently is. So.
Yeah. Okay. So, but that's interesting about your name. So you say it's Fuad. Fuad.
Yes, yes. I can't tell you how many people mess it up every time. It's like I expect people to mess it up. So, and you did yourself, but it's cool. It's cool. You're forgiven.
Yeah, the way I have friends with the name who are named Fuad, and it's spelled the other way around.
Yes.
So that's why. My apologies.
Nah,
But
you're good,
thanks for clarifying.
you go.
Yeah, I appreciate the clarification. Then we have Griffin, and then after that we have, I believe, Jomana, or yeah, okay, go ahead.
Hi guys, I'm Griffin. I'm an undergraduate student at Boston University. I do clinical research at the Sansom Diabetes Research Institute in Santa Barbara, California. Most of the work I've done is clinical experience relating to GLP-1s and GLP-1 related clinical trials. I also do tau proteomics research for Alzheimer's disease at the University of Santa Barbara, California, kind of tying into what Carlo does with neuroplasticity. That's pretty cool. I'm on the clinical research side of Pfizer's digital device research division. So I get a lot of, I have a lot of different sides of research experience too. I also work as an ER technician at Boston Medical Center too. So, and I like to
Nice.
spearfish. That's my interesting fact.
You like to spearfish?
Yes, sir.
Nice, interesting. Thanks for sharing. So you're in clinical research as in what capacity? You're a coordinator, an assistant, associate. What do you do?
I'm an
Data.
associate at UCSB. I do tau proteomics research, so I'm mostly on the mass spec side. We use AI and new MS systems to decode the tau proteome.
Nice. Is your undergrad in molecular biology domain?
Cell bio.
Sweet. Nice. That's really cool. That's really, really cool. So a lot of the so you're probably gonna understand a lot of the concept that we're gonna talk about in the immune dysregulation, and there's a lot of immunobiology there. That's
I look
cool.
forward to it.
Thanks so
I
much
look
for
forward
sharing. Okay, awesome. Then we have I believe you said Jumana. Is that how you pronounce your name? And then we have Nicole.
Hi, I'm Jumana.
Hi, Jumana.
I am MBBS. I have graduated from Ukraine, and now I am internship in Virgin Hospital. But this is my first joining of research, actually.
Nice. Welcome. Welcome. So you're located where currently?
United Arab Emirates.
In UAE. Okay.
UAE.
Awesome. And you graduated in Ukraine. And then would you like to share something interesting about yourself? An interesting.
First time to including a research, so I don't have any experience about it. So. But excited to be with you guys.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're excited to have you too. Then we have Nicole, and after Nicole, we have Sebastian. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Nicole. I'm sorry I can't turn my camera because here in Panama this week we have something called the Carnival or Carnaval. So I'm not actually at my home, but I hope in the next sessions I will be able to turn my camera so you can meet me. Like I said, I'm from Panama City, Panama, a beautiful country also in Central America. I just graduated medical school last Monday, so I'm kind of a new doctor, so to speak. I'm sorry. Can you hear me, guys? I think my internet is not so great. Okay. Yes, my clinical research experience, I have practiced looking through medical charts, doing experiences like laparoscopic versus open surgery and mostly clinical aspects of things, but never a really systematic review or literature review. Mostly my experiences are clinical, so I'm really excited to work with this and know other things to do this type of research. And something interesting about me is that I can also touch my nose with my tongue, and I have twin brothers, for example.
Nice. You have twin brothers. You're
Yes.
not okay. So are they older or younger than you?
They're younger than me.
They're younger than you. Okay, awesome. Then next time when you have your camera, you're gonna have to show us how you touch your nose with your tongue.
Yeah, I will.
Panama's a beautiful country. I haven't had the chance to visit it yet, but it's definitely on my top list of places that I want to visit. We think of in Central America, we think of Panama City as like the Miami of Central America. Is so developed and so touristy and so industrial, and so it's really cool. It's very, very excited to have you here, Nicole.
Yeah, really nice to meet you too. You are welcome anytime you want to come. We can show you around. It's really
Appreciate
beautiful.
that. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing. Next, we have Sebastian, and then we have Feven.
Hi, let me know if the communications stops because it's raining a lot here, so sorry for that. And hi, my name is Sebastian. I'm from Colombia. It's South America. I'm graduate from Universidad of Rosario, the capital, Bogota. Maybe you don't know, it's beautiful city. And something about me, I have a little bit of research studies, but not international ones. So it's more from my country on radiology, internal medicine, and some research from that. I'm work on the intensive care unit, and to truth one lie, let me think about it. Okay, I have a dog. I am married, and I have 3 sisters. Which one?
Interesting.
It's difficult.
I'm gonna go with the lie is that you're married.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Okay.
I also think
That's
that one.
correct. Yeah, that's correct. I'm
You
single.
look.
Yeah,
Okay, so colombiano, Sebastián.
exactamente. Yep.
Nice. Bienvenido. Welcome. Welcome, Sebastián.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and from Bogota, you mentioned.
No, I'm from Pasto. It's to let me sure. You know Ecuador? It's
Yeah.
close to Ecuador. It's
Okay, so
but it's
south.
far. Yeah, it's very south.
Ah, okay. But you live in Bogota, or is that where you went to school?
No, I live in Bogota.
You live in Bogota. Okay, nice. Awesome, awesome. I have several Colombian friends, and again, Colombia is one of the places that I definitely want to come visit.
Yeah.
But my
You have
friends
to
are
go.
inviting me to like Cartagena and Medellin,
Yes,
and
yes.
I'm
And
gonna have to stop to Bogota.
from my country, from my place when I grow up, it's the carnival. Maybe you don't know, it's Negros and Blancos, white and black carnival. It's very famous, very, very famous, and very
I
beautiful
don't,
too.
yeah, I don't know. We're gonna have to schedule a carnival tour apparently because Panama is in Carnival right now, and so is Colombia's probably gonna be there soon.
We have
Nice.
every year carnival, so we have every
Hey.
month carnivals here.
Well, yeah, Colombian culture is very festive for sure.
Yeah.
It's
Yes,
really
yes,
cool.
yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing, Sebastian.
I'm sorry, I have to turn off the camera because the internet is not good. So
Totally understand it. Totally understand
yeah,
it. Thank you for
thank
letting us
you.
know. Thanks. Next we have Feven, and then we have I believe it's Pranati. Okay.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Faven. I went to medical school in Ethiopia. And the prior research exposure, I did my master's in medical biotechnology, where I worked in regenerative medicine. And after that, I did my MPH at GW. Currently, I'm working as a clinical research coordinator. And so 2 truths and a lie. I currently live in DC. I love running, or I have 6 siblings.
That's a good one.
Wait, can we ask questions to figure out?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, what time is it there right now?
Well, I can't.
That's a little obvious. That's a little obvious,
Yeah.
but
Very smart, very smart.
let's say I'm gonna go with you love running.
That's
I
the
don't know a
lie?
lot. That's a lie. Okay, I got it.
Oh, I
I
was
guess
asking you if that was okay.
for me that's a lie. I would say that. I don't know what everyone else think.
I'll go with the DC. If you did not answer at the time, that's a good giveaway.
Okay.
Okay. The lie is I love running. I don't.
See, I told you, not a lot of people like running. I like to work out, but I hate running with my heart. I hate it. It's so boring for me, but it's so necessary.
Yeah.
Well,
And
Steven,
it's nice to meet
thank you
everyone.
for sharing. Nice to meet
Mhm.
you too. We're very happy to have you. And sorry for mispronouncing your name. I promise I got it from now. Steven, right?
Haven. Faye. Like Faye?
Steven. Like okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for
Okay.
sharing.
Mhm.
Then we have Pranati, and then we have Treasure.
Hey everyone, this is Pranati, and I'm currently a final year medical student in Gandhi Medical College, which is located in the southern part of India. And currently, I'm in the United States doing my clinical rotations. I am done with my USMLE Step 1 and Step 2 CK. And thank you. And coming to Two Truths and One Lie, it's I love food. Um, I've never been on social media, and I'm very much interested in research.
That's interesting.
Social media.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, it's very hard to find anyone from our generations now without a little bit of traits on social media.
Yeah.
Thanks. So you're doing your clinical rotations here? Where?
In Texas, I'm currently in Houston.
In Houston. Nice, nice.
Yeah.
Are you at Houston Methodist by chance?
No, I'm like the doctor I'm working with. He works in both Houston Methodist as well as the HCA Healthcare medical system.
Nice.
So yeah.
And what are you rotating in with? And what specialty are you rotating right now?
In cardiology.
Cards. Okay, nice. So
Yeah.
it aligns perfectly. It aligns perfectly. All right, thank you for sharing, Pranati. Very, very excited to have you here, and congrats on your USMLE journey. You're quite advanced. Congrats on that.
Thank you. Thank
Congrats
you
on
very
that.
much.
Yeah, of course. And finally, we have Treasure.
Okay, hello everyone. Good day. My name is Treasure. I'm from Nigeria. And I'm a medical doctor. I finished from university in 2024, went to university in Nigeria as well. And I did a 1-year internship, finished that in October 2025. So I'm currently preparing for Step 1, USMLE Step 1, and I don't really have a lot of research experience. And then two truths and one lie. So I play the keyboard, and then my youngest sibling is 2 years old, and I can speak 4 languages fluently. Yeah.
That's a good one. I like this one. I like this one. That's a good one. I'm gonna go with the 2-year-old sibling.
Oh, okay. No. Actually, the lie is I can speak 4 languages. I actually have a 2-year-old sibling. Yeah, like biological sibling.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
So how many languages do you speak?
Oh, just 2. My native one from one of the Nigerian languages, and then English, I mean, generally.
And forgive me if I'm wrong, is it Yoruba?
No, it's Igbo.
Igbo, okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
We're very excited to have you too, Treasure. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. All right. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much, everyone, for being vulnerable and sharing things about yourself. And like I mentioned, we're a community, and we hope to be able to help each other out and learn throughout this journey. So back to business. Let's get started with some of our main topics of interest today. So as an introductory part, we're talking about the key components. So the key components of the of what this module is going to be. So like we already introduced each other to everyone, so we got that out of the way. Now, to remind you, I'm just your facilitator. You can call me by my name. You can call me doctor. You can call me however you prefer. I don't mind. I like my name, so I really don't mind. It's however you feel the most comfortable. Most important part is that you feel comfortable addressing us and asking any questions. We want to create an atmosphere that everyone feels comfortable to approach anyone, of course, within the boundaries of respect. So it's very important to mention also that it's not very frequent, but it's actually not frequent at all. But as a safety method, we do have a method of reporting if someone is being disrespectful to you, on or off, like from the program. It goes from peers, instructors, facilitators, anyone. If anyone is addressing you in a way that make you feel uncomfortable through messages or something, please report it. We don't allow. We have a very, very strict policy about harassment and making everyone feel comfortable and uncomfortable. So please approach us, and if you need to report something, report equals support. So we want to create a very safe environment for everyone. So this is very, very important. Let me see. So as we've mentioned, that we have I love working with small groups like this. This is designed to have a high academic professional standard, and we have instructors from a lot of different very Ivy League places and very important places, very important institutions across the nation and internationally as well. We have people from Hopkins, from Mayo Clinics, from Harvard. We have a lot of other people who we can help you out with this research journey, especially if you're research naive. So there are many mentors who are affiliated. So we want to talk about a little bit of what is the hourglass model. The hourglass model is the framework that we're going to use to write our reviews, to write our scientific piece. So from that concept, we're going to take that concept on. So we're going to begin with it begins with a very broad epidemiologic way. So think of this structure. This is what we call the hourglass model of a narrative review. And we're going to see what are the differences between narrative and systematic reviews. But we'll want us to look at this model, look at this hourglass model, and try to ingrain that in your mind. This is what the paper is going to look like. We're going to have a very broad introduction, and then we have the body, which is going to be the discussion where we narrow down the topic, and then we have a broader conclusion and applicability. So think of the structure of your narrative review as an hourglass. We begin at the top with the widest part, your introduction. Here you set the broad stage, perhaps discussing the global burden of heart failure, for example, before funneling down to identify the specific gap in knowledge. So a narrative review is focused on gaps, such as why current therapies fail to address cardiac inflammation, for example. The narrow neck of the hourglass represents the body of your review, where we are going to dive deep into the specific cellular and molecular mechanisms, where we analyze the granular details of immune dysregulation, like T cell activation or cytokine storms, for example. Finally, as we move into discussion, the hourglass widens back again, and we take those specific findings and broaden them back out to explore their clinical relevance. So answering the so what question is going to be the key. So what is the so what question? We're going to look at it in the future. So by connecting molecular mechanisms to therapeutic targets and future patient care, we're going to be able to successfully write an impactful conclusion of the information that we find. Any questions here? All right, so let's look at some foundational concepts. Here we provide an extensive exploration of what we call the foundations of research concepts. This is to ensure that every person has what it needs to understand the steps that we're going to take. So if you have never had prior exposure to academic research, we're going to follow this module effectively. So first of all, we explained that the distinction between primary and secondary research. Has anyone had experience between primary and secondary research? Who can tell me something about primary and secondary research? Have you heard this concept before? Do you know what it is? Do you have an idea of what it is?
Well, I understand that primary research is when you're like looking for the data yourself, for example, like through questionnaires or like clinical charts, while secondary research is like what we are doing or like learning to do, like systematic reviews, literature reviews, meta-analysis, that they take what we had from the primary research and we like synthesize or summarize the knowledge that they found.
Excellent. That's exactly it. It's primary research is when we generate the data ourselves through our scientific process. One of the prime example or the gold standard for primary research is clinical trials. Clinical trials is primary research, right? So in clinical trials, we test therapeutic modalities and then we obtain the data. That's what we call primary research. And then when we publish that, that's what we call an original paper. So that's primary research. And then secondary research is exactly what we're doing. Is we're doing a narrative review, which is a summary of what the data says, of what the data firstly obtained was. So that was a very great that's a great explanation. Thank you so much. Who was that? Sorry, I didn't see that. I was not looking at the who shared that.
Nicole.
Nicole. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, that was very accurate. So we call that primary evidence and emerges from original studies, such as like what we mentioned, the randomized control trials and observational cohorts. Sometimes in epidemiology, for example, we do a lot of observation in cohorts and we obtain the primary data. Whereas secondary research, such as narrative, systematics, meta-analyses, for example, we synthesize the prior findings rather than generating a new data. So narrative reviews is the focus of the narrative review of this, which is the focus of this module. They occupy a very, very distinct niche in the evidence hierarchy. So though they do lack what we call a rigid methodological structure of systematic reviews, they allow researchers to tell a scientific story, or it contextualizes all the controversies and it highlights the gaps in the literature. This is the key operating word, gaps. Our literature review, our discussion, the narrow neck that we were talking about in the hourglass, focuses on gaps, identifies the gaps in the literature. That is what we're going to do. We want to identify the gaps in the literature presently. For this reason, they remain a highly valuable piece of scientific work that is very valuable for clinicians and investigators seeking a very broad perspective on evolving topics, such as immunomodulatory therapies that have repeatedly failed to improve outcomes in heart failure. For example, has anyone heard about Repatha? Has anyone heard about Repatha? Yes? No? Maybe?
No.
Okay. So Repatha is a it's a new drug. It's a newer drug. It's a monoclonal antibody that, when taken in combination with a statin, it reduces your. It has the potential of reducing your death by heart attack, or the incidence of heart attack, almost by 73%. Almost by 73%. So this is an immunomodulator because it's a monoclonal antibody. Before we arrived to Repatha, there were several other monoclonal antibodies that failed to do that. So all these things that failed, we identified what were the gaps. What were the gaps in each one of them? What were we missing? What mechanism were we missing? A mechanism? Were we missing a receptor? Were we missing? So we identify gaps. That's what we want to do. That's what we want to obtain through a narrative review. That is the purpose of a narrative review. Identify gaps in a very systematic way, and then we tell a story about it. So this, let me see. So further, then we talk about okay, before we move into authorship ethics. So the way I see a narrative review, I like to explain it this way. Imagine that, I like to use this example, that imagine that you're reading a newspaper. Let's say, I'm going to talk about the Columbus Dispatch newspaper because I live in Columbus, Ohio. Let's say that the Columbus Dispatch has issued their has published their issues, right, and has published all of their papers in the past year, and then you're going to go back into a year of newspaper publications, and we're going to look for violent crimes in Columbus. So then we're going to read all of the news. You read through you scope through the newspaper, and then you start reading. Okay, you identify all of the violent news, like this can be shootings, this can be knives, this can be whatever you want to call, whatever we classify as a violent crime. So let's say that after reading through a year long of newspaper publications, we identified a pattern. We identified a pattern such as, it looks like in the Northeast, and this is just an example. This is not the truth. Let's say that I see that after reading a whole year of newspapers from the Columbus Dispatch and reading all the violent crimes reports and news, I have identified that the Northeast area is the area with the highest amount of crimes involving guns, for example. And whereas all the other three areas have their violent crimes are more distributed among the different types. It can be family crimes, it can be whatever you want to call it. But why would it be? So then you focus, like, why could that be? What could be happening in the Northeast that there are more gun crimes rather than in the rest of the area of the city? Why is that happening? So then we look into it, and then we realize, oh, it happens that the factories, the manufacturers, and the biggest and largest amount of shops where you can purchase a gun are located in the Northeast area. So people have more access to that, to guns in this area. That's an example. So then we start drafting a story. Now, this is this step is very, very important. If I'm conducting a narrative review, and I have identified that the Northeast has a gun problem, and we have identified that the Northeast of the city has more shops where people can access guns, in my conclusions, can I conclude and state, oh, the reason why there are more violent crimes gun-related in the Northeast area is because there are more places to shop for a gun? Do you think that is a correct statement, or that is an incorrect statement for me to make in a narrative review specifically? What do you think?
I don't think that's accurate. That would be making a causation, but not a correlation. So
excellent. That's the key word. Someone was going to say something else?
No, I was going to say the same thing.
Exactly.
We can't really prove the direct causation, and there are a lot of confounding factors.
Correct. Because a narrative review is just a story. We're not testing any hypothesis, right? Correlation is not causality. Correlation is not the same. It's not necessarily causality. Although there are strong correlations in the real life, like, for example, obesity is highly correlated to all the spectrum of mental health diseases. We have not really established obesity as a cause of a specific disease, a specific mental health disease, for example. So correlation is not causality. So in a narrative review, we're just telling a story. And then we can propose a solution. Since we have identified these variables, and this can be correlated, what is the gold standard to establish causality?
RCTs.
Randomized control trials, correct. Randomized control trials. Perfect. You guys are brilliant. I don't even know what I'm doing here. You guys already know all this. This is awesome. So that's exactly it. So it's important that we know that in the narrative review, we're not going to overarch or overreach. We're not going to overreach our statements, because that will be it would immediately be rejected from any journal, because that's not the objective of the narrative review. The narrative review is meant to shed light on gaps, but not to establish causality. So, all right, so about authorship ethics. Authorship ethics, this part is very important. Who has heard about ICMJE guidelines? The ICMJE guidelines. Who's familiar with it? Have you ever heard about it before? Yes, no, maybe? Okay.
I believe there are
Yes,
like
I've heard
criteria
about
for
it.
partnerships.
Sorry, what was that?
Okay, I've heard about it before.
Okay. Yeah, so ICMJE are things that are guidelines, are international guidelines or gold standard guidelines through which they guide us on how to publish scientific pieces. And for this, I have prepared a short 5-minute video on what these are. And let me know if you can hear it.
I don't think we can hear it. At least I can't.
No.
I can't hear it as well.
Okay, thanks for letting me know. Let me see. I need to. Okay.
Hello, I'm Clem Weinberger, and I'm a freelance consultant. I'd like to talk about who to put on the author list on the title page of your manuscript. Authorship's important for your professional or academic standing and may be required for continuing grant support of your research. So let's talk about the guidelines for determining who can be included in the list of authors on the title page of your research paper. Now, the author instructions of most peer-reviewed journals include a paragraph that gives their requirements for authorships, and most journals follow the recommendations of the ICMJE, which is the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors. Their requirements are intended to ensure that the investigators who make significant contributions to a study are given credit and as authors, and to show who's responsible for what's published. Some journals request and publish what each of the authors have contributed to the research, and the ICMJE recommends that all authors satisfy all 4 of the following. The first is they've made a substantial contribution to the conception or design of the research, or the acquisition, analysis, or interpretation of the data that's obtained, and drafting the work or revising it critically for important intellectual content, and final approval of the version to be published, and agreement to be accountable for all aspects of the work, and in ensuring that questions related to the accuracy or integrity of any part of the work are appropriately investigated and resolved. So again, those listed as authors should meet all 4 criteria for authorship, and all who meet the 4 should be on the list. Those who do not meet all 4 can be named in the acknowledgments section of the paper. So these requirements are meant to limit the author list to those who are actively involved in the study, and also can take responsibility for the results and their interpretation. Your colleagues who meet the first requirement should also have the opportunity to participate in the review, drafting, and final approval of the manuscript. And you know, most of the time, you can identify the authors when you plan the study. That is, when you are writing the protocol and or the description that will be reviewed by the local ethics committee or the institutional review board. Now, the corresponding author is the one who communicates with the journal during the submission, peer review, and the publication process. And the corresponding author also ensures all the administrative duties, like providing details of the author contributions, the clinical trial registrations if needed, ethics committee approval, and getting the other authors to submit their conflict of interest statements are completed on time. And the corresponding author should consider sharing all the communications with the journal with all the authors. Colleagues who meet fewer than all 4 authorship requirements can be acknowledged in that section of the paper, and their contributions, for example, could be providing administrative support, writing and or technical language editing and proofreading. Other contributions to be acknowledged could be providing valuable scientific advice, critical review of the study, protocol or manuscript, collecting data, providing patient care, or just participating in the writing or technical editing of the manuscript. So that's a summary of what's required if you are to be on the title page of your publication manuscript. I hope it's been a help, and feel free to consult the internet guidelines either at the publication or the editors committee that I mentioned. Good luck, good writing, and good publishing. Talk to you next time.
Any questions about the ICMJE guidelines? Question, comments, concerns, confessions?
I think everyone went clear for me.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So on that note, I'll introduce you to right here. This is the drive where we're going to be working at. So it's called Cardioimmunology Mentees, and you guys thank you for the ones who have created their files. If you haven't, please make sure you make the time to do this. This is where we're going to be uploading our deliverables. You're going to find the 6-week coursework, which is just to review it. We're going to look at this week. We have the introduction, what are narrative reviews, and we're going to do the selection topic and how to perform the literature search. The week number 2 is we structure the learning and references, and we start writing. We start writing our introduction. So, and then week number 3 and number 4 is when we write the bulk of our discussion. We write about the methods and discussion. Here we learn how to use BioRender, which is a tool that is free. Sorry, it's free, and we learn how to put together medical images that are relevant for our literature. And week number 5, we write the conclusions, and week number 6, we have the final edits and submission for publication. So this is the 6-week coursework. You can find it in your drive. I've also included a copy of the Elements of Style. It's a short 50-page book where it is meant for anyone. If you have the time to read it, I highly recommend it. It is meant to enhance your writing abilities in English, especially if if you are a non-English native speaker, a non-native English speaker. Then it expands your ability to perform and to jot down your ideas in English. because for those of us who English is not our first language, the way that we think is very different. The process of thinking is very, very different, because the language is that way. We structure our language very differently. So I highly recommend you make the time to do that. Then we also have, this is the milestone table. This is the table that will determine these are the targets. These are targets that we want everyone to be at level 5, of course. And based on this, we're going to perform your final assessment, and determine the level of authorship, who's going to be the first, second, third, fourth and author, and so on and so forth. Here, I've also included the explanation. This is a scholarly contribution assessment rubric breakdown. So what is that? This is just the same thing as this, but explained, written down. Then what we expect in core professional standards, and all of the other ways that we expect for your contributions. And based on this, we're going to ultimately determine what is your what's going to be your level of authorship. Then I've also this is some examples for today, and this is the study guide for this week. So week number 1, this is what we're going to be looking at. So it's a short study guide of what we look at. This is for your review. This is so you can have some basics to review after the class if you find yourself in need to review it. So I highly recommend that for each class, everyone, if you're able, you connect from your computer and you're able to access these things, because we're gonna do interactive searches, we're gonna do interactive things. So it's very hands-on. It's very, very hands-on. So highly recommend that. It's totally understandable if you can, things happen, but highly recommended to do that. So this is what you're gonna find in the drive, on the drive. And then in each one of your personal drives, we're going to be uploading the deliverables for each week. All right, so let's now touch base on, let's get down to business. We've touched on the foundational concepts of what is a systematic review. Is a storytelling, is a logical, scientific storytelling. What is a narrative review, not a systematic review? What's a narrative review is, it's also called literature review. It is very different than a systematic review. A systematic review is it has a very rigid protocol. It has to be registered in something called Prospero, which is a database. And we first design the protocol, and then we execute the protocol on searching. We have to agree on what are the search criteria, what are the elements that we're going to include in our what are the inclusion and exclusion criteria of the articles that we're going to include in this research, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas a narrative review is a lot more intuitive. It doesn't mean that it's less valid, but it's also it's more intuitive. It's a lot more intuitive. So it doesn't have a very rigid protocol that needs to be followed step by step. So it's a different way. So let's start with topic selection. Let's start with topic selection and PICO. Who here has heard about PICO or PICO before? And what do you call it? Do you call it PICO or do you call it PICO?
PICO.
PICO.
PICO. Okay. PICO. Good. Who has heard about PICO before, and what do you think PICO is?
PICO stands for Population, Intervention, Comparison, and Outcome.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Vivian. That's exactly it. So we're going to look into an example of what it is. So what we want to learn here is we deeply look into the structure process of narrowing a broad scientific theme into a focused and actionable research question. So we have our broad topic, right? So our broad topic is immune dysregulation and heart failure. This is a topic that was assigned for us. This is a topic that you signed out, that you guys signed on for. So and we learn how to begin the framing of the exploration using the PICO framework. PICO, traditionally used in clinical research question development, this remains the extremely valuable base of the framework for shaping the narrative reviews. because it encourages the clarity of the scope, and it makes sure that we're all following the same direction of research. So here we detail how to operationalize the PICO elements by defining the patient population. Then, for example, patient population could be heart failure patients. We can decide on an age, we can decide on a demographic, on specific demographics, we decide on the population. Then identifying the intervention or exposure of interest. Intervention is also mentioned as exposure, can also be interchangeably used as exposure of interest. For example, immune dysregulation or immunomodulation in this case. Then determining whether a comparison group is necessary. So in this case, it's optional in a narrative review, but it's useful for a conceptual framing. Why is it optional in a narrative review? Because a narrative review, normally a comparison is a comparator or a comparison group is meant to answer a specific question about difference between here and there. But then if we want to answer a question, then we want to use more of a systematic approach, so it can be optional. Depends on how we want to frame it, but it's still useful to have like a concept framing. And finally, we specified what outcomes of relevance, like adverse remodeling or fibrosis or survival, we're going to talk about. So by thinking through the PICO framework very early on, we avoid producing an overly broad or disorganized narrative. So moreover, the structure, what it's meant to do is to approach a training to recognize how mechanistic insights relate to clinical outcomes, such as essential, which is very essential when analyzing immune pathways, such as like inflammatory cytokine activation or maladaptive macrophage phenotypes and T cell mediated injury. Sorry, I think you're hearing that noise and it's annoying me. I'm gonna clock that. Yeah, sorry about that. So we want to look into the mechanistic. We want to integrate the mechanistics into a very specific framework of question. What is our story going to be about? Now, talking about that, let's look into an example. Here is the PICO framework is formulating a focused research question. This is just an example. For example, population or patient problem. As an example, we have who are the patients and what is the problem? So one example can be patients in chronic heart failure and elevated markers of systemic inflammation, for example, a high sensitivity CRP. That can be a population. That's our P. Our intervention or exposure. What do you plan to do for this population? This can be a targeted anti-inflammatory therapy, like an interleukin-1 beta blockade, or like canakinumab, for example, is a monoclonal antibody. Then what is our comparison? So what is the alternative to your plan? Is it a placebo or standard of care? So a comparison can be non-standard heart failure care plus a placebo, like a standard heart failure care plus a placebo, like no additional anti-inflammatory treatment. And placebo, everybody knows what placebo is. It's like a sugar pill. And finally, the outcome. What is the desired result that we want to measure? In this case, an example could be reduction in composite endpoint. It can be cardiovascular death and hospitalization for heart failure. So an outcome can be a single outcome, or it can be a composite outcome. A composite outcome is when we add one variable plus the other, or we have more than one variables, and then we measure the compound effect of that. So what outcome do we want to talk about? This is so we can start thinking of what we can start modeling what is our question going to be. Any questions about this? Everybody understands what PICO is, and if somebody doesn't understand or has something else to add, please feel free to speak up. Okay, I'm glad it's clear. All right, so moving on from the pre-writing, from the framework formulation, let's start database searching. What databases do we know? What databases do we know that you can mention that we typically will look into? for literature searches?
PubMed.
PubMed. What else?
Cochrane.
Cochrane, excellent. What else? What else can you think of? What other databases have you heard of?
Google
Has anyone?
Scholar.
Good old Google Scholar, correct. What else? Someone said something else?
Scopus.
Scopus, excellent. Scopus is one of the forgotten ones, but is also very strong. Yeah, correct. All of these are databases. What about if I said the American Heart Association journals? Is that a database?
No.
No. Why is it not a database?
I believe because a database is a composition of various journals, and that will be just one journal.
Exactly. That's exactly. Thanks, Nicole. That's so we want to differentiate a journal versus a database. We don't. We can certainly find a lot of information in one journal, but journals are thematic. Journals are very, very thematic. Databases are broad. We can find almost anything inside of it. So databases are meant to be very broad. So the most common ones, of course, the most common one in the good is PubMed. That's our core of searches. But we also have other databases such as clinicaltrials.gov and clinicaltrials.gov, where we find clinical trial or primary data. We also find those published data there. We find those published reports in clinicaltrials.gov. So it's also a way to do it. It's also one of the databases. Let's see. So here we provide what we call a practical and comprehensive introduction to searching the biomedical literature effectively. So a core competency for producing a high quality narrative review is learning how to look for information and where. So we want to cover the primary databases. We start with PubMed, for example. So consider the gold standard search. This is considered like the gold standard search engine for health sciences due to its indexing through Medline and incorporation of controlled vocabulary such as what we call the MESH, the famous MESH. MESH is MESH. It's short for medical subject headings. That is, so PubMed contains what we call the MESH terms. We're going to learn what MESH terms are and we're going to use them today. So we want to learn how to use, for example, Google Scholar can be very useful to identify what we call gray literature. The gray literature is a literature that's not always indexed, or scanning broad trends through it. This is what we call a scoping review. So we look for very broad trends. An example of gray literature, it can be a thesis that someone published, but was never really published into a specific journal. It was not indexed in an indexed journal. That's what we call the gray literature. So Google Scholar can be useful to look for gray literature or scanning broad trends. So through it requires careful evaluation of the source quality. We want to look into the source quality. So there are several like emerging AI power tools such as like ResearchRabbit, Consensus, SciSpace, SciHub, which can be helpful to like introduce and help you visualize some like citation networks or summarize some results. However, it is not highly encouraged during this module, during this course, that we use it for analytical purposes. Remember that AI is mainly a predictive language model. And there are some cases where it is very useful, but we don't encourage the analytical portion. And I'm going to show you how. I'm going to show you a brief example of what is a good way to use AI for our purposes. So it is meant to be used very judiciously and never in isolation, or like never AI being your only source of something. So we want to explain how essential the search strategy concepts are, including the differentiation or the distinction between free text keywords and structured mesh terms. We also talk about Boolean operators. Who has heard about Boolean operators? What are Boolean operators? What do you know? What have you heard about Boolean operators?
They're words like and or, trying to find like two concepts together or different variations of a word.
Correct. And, or, and not. That's correct. That's exactly. Those are the three Boolean operators. There are also symbols that we can use for truncation. Parentheses. We also have the like asterisk or star. I don't know how you know it. What do you call it? But asterisk can call truncation. If we add, for example, the word child as a mesh term, and we use an asterisk, that is, the asterisk is a truncation that's going to help us find the singular and the plural of that word. So it can find articles with the word child or children, for example. So it can find an article, if we use man, it will find men and men, and vice versa. So those are symbols that we can use. So these are we want to know these in depth, and we want to show because this is going to help us how to narrow a broadened search strategically. So the sample search string is provides and provided like demonstrates how to combine both subject headings and mechanistic terminology that are relevant to our topic, which is immune dysregulation and heart failure. So this is not only to teach the search technique, but also to reinforce the biologic themes that this module is going to explore. So when we're able to master these strategies, students are going to be able to gain, mentees are going to be able to gain the confidence in independently identifying high quality relevant scientific articles. So let's do this. So screening for articles. When we screen for articles, we talk about the process of evaluating and selecting articles for inclusion in the narrative review. It introduces what we talk about is the practical strategy, such as limiting the searches to the past 5 to 10 years to ensure that the evidence is up to date, while we also recognize the importance of incorporating a seminal older study when they remain foundational to the field. For example, in leukemia, we use the same 7+3 chemotherapy model from, 50 years ago. And so whenever we're studying the 7+3, which is a hypomethylating agent, plus the cytotoxic agent, we have the famous azacitidine plus venetoclax. So we use these this is a standard of the same 7+3 method. So 7 days of an agent that's going to be cytotoxic, an agent is going to be hypomethylating, et cetera, et cetera. For when we're researching these topics, we want to include seminal studies from the 70s because that is the origin of this therapy. But in things more like immunomodulators, I'm sure we're going to find a lot more information in the actuality because it is not only more newer science, but it's also highly funded. It's highly funded, so we have a lot of information. So some topics do not require seminal information, but some topics do require seminal sources. So we want to learn how to conduct a review of the reviews that have already been done. So this will help us quickly map the existing knowledge and identify all the gaps. But we're going to remind ourselves that the primary data from trials in cohorts and mechanistic studies will still and must still serve as the backbone of the synthesis. So the synthesis, we can use secondary data such as meta-analyses and systematic reviews, and we can synthesize that. But it is important to use also primary research. It is important to use primary research this is going to be like the spine, it's the spine of our research. The spine of our paper, of our review, derives from primary data, and then we delve into the secondary research, like the reviews that we mentioned. In this case, let me see. We also talk about introduction to the key immune mechanisms that are relevant to heart failure. In this case, there's two things that we need to learn about particularly. The innate immune pathways that include TLRs or toll-like receptors, the inflammasome components, and the NLRs and the macrophages phenotypes that contribute to myocardial inflammation and fibrosis. Adaptive immunity is the other thing, the other component aside from innate component. The innate, all that I mentioned was the innate immune pathways. Now, the adaptive immunity is discussed in the terms of T cell activation through auto antibody production. So, how these responses perpetuate cardiac remodeling. That is more of adaptive. We're gonna look at an image right next. So. We explained the mechanisms features to look for this to know what to look for basically. So here we find the immune mechanisms in the heart failure. This is what we call the innate immunity, and this is what we call the adaptive immunity, right? So in the innate immunity, we have the toll-like receptors. What are LPS? Does someone know what LPS are?
Lipopolysaccharides.
Right, correct. Thank you, Franti. That's lipopolysaccharides. And where do we find lipopolysaccharides? What are the main sources of lipopolysaccharides?
Bacteria.
Bacteria. It's pathogen-associated molecules. So lipopolysaccharides are molecules that will bind to the toll-like receptors and will trigger what we call the inflammasome. The inflammasome is all the cascade of inflammation that it's going to recruit the pro-inflammatory cytokines and will ultimately cause what we call the pro-inflammatory M1 macrophages, like tumor necrosis factor alpha and interleukin 6, and pro-fibrotic macrophages, which are the M2, which are transformation growth factor beta and collagen deposition, which is going to module what we know as, this is the innate immunity, right, is mediated by these toll-like receptors. While the adaptive immunity, we call that, it's mediated by the activated T cells. Activated T cells will secrete through the CD4 positive receptors and the CD4 and CD8 T cells will recruit cytokines and will induce cytotoxicity and will cause what we call the autoantibodies, targeting the cardiac tissue. So this is mediated by antibodies. It's also called the humoral immunity, which is mediated by antibodies rather than the inflammasome. So this image summarizes how both the innate and adaptive immunity contribute to the progression of the heart failure in general. So on the left, like we mentioned, as a review, we see that innate immune system where the toll-like receptors are going to reorganize damage-associated signals from stress or dying cardiomyocytes and trigger inflammatory pathways. This activation is going to feed into what we call the NLRP3 inflammasome, which is the inflammatory cascade, which produces potent cytokines, like the ones we mentioned, interleukin 1 beta, interleukin 18. These are going to amplify the local inflammation. So below that, we find the macrophages, the macrophage polarization, which plays a key role. As we mentioned, the M1 macrophages will derive in inflammation through cytokines such as the ones that we mentioned here, the TNF alpha and IL-6, while the M2 will promote the fibrosis through mediators such as TGF beta, leading to what we call the collagen deposition. So, and on the right side, also as a review, we find the adaptive immune system, which is mediated by CD4 positive and CD8 positive T cells that became activated in the setting of chronic cardiac injury. This will release cytokines and cause cytotoxicity and damage that will further all the injuries in myocardial tissue. So additionally, the autoantibodies may form against antigens. These are going to bind to the attacking. They're going to bind to the cardiomyocytes and attack the heart tissue or the cardiac tissue in a chronic self-perpetuating cycle. So all of these pathways converge in the center of the diagram, which is the myocardial inflammation and fibrosis. So these are different mechanisms that ultimately drive adverse cardiac remodeling. So these are characterized by what we call fibrosis, hypertrophy, and progressive dysfunction. Any questions onto here or any comments? All right, so let's do the practice. Let me see. I still have access through OSU. Let me see, I might need to log in. This makes me log in all the time. And we're going to use, I've prepared a couple of search strings that we can use, which you will find here in this mesh search strings. So we typically go to PubMed. Normally what I do is I skip this part and I just go to advanced. And we're going to look at the strings that I've prepared. So I've prepared them in different ways. These are, so the group 1, we have broad overview and foundation of cardiac immunology or cardioimmunology. The group 2 is specific about innate mechanisms. The group 3 is specific about adaptive immunity and autoimmunity. And group 4 is about outcomes and therapeutics. So these are different search strings that we can use. Let's see, number 1 is let's do the general all-encompassing search. So we have here heart failure. This is a mesh term, or cardiac failure. You can put these brackets to mention if you want to find the specific concept in the title or the abstract, or you can delete it if you don't need it, and then you use parentheses to separate the different concepts. So this is one of the terms. So we're looking for heart failure or cardiac failure, and immune system phenomena or inflammation or immune dysregulation. And this is one example. So once we're here in advanced, we go to the query box, and in the query box, you paste your search string, and then you start searching. So here is where we find and then the first thing we're going to see is we found 366 results. Now, I have already pre-filtered. So I have a review and free full text. Let's remove review. And let's leave free full text, because one thing that we need to know is that we cannot include results. We cannot include sources that we don't have full access to. So if we don't have full access to an article or to a piece of publication, it is not best practice to include it based on the abstract, because we're not going to be able to provide a full analysis of the full of the full content. So see that when I remove the review article type filter, we have found 1,653 results. So we are going to, and see, they're all free articles. As you see here, they're all free articles. Now, if I remove the free full text, see, we have over 4,000, right? And we're going to find several of those that are not free. They're not free articles. So I like to keep it in free full text, because that way we can use this information for sure. So this is one of the ways to use it. So what are we finding? Association between systemic immune inflammation, index, and cardiovascular kidney. Then let's see if it helps us include the abstract. Let's see.
Dr. Carlos,
yeah.
Can we use Sci-Hub to access the articles that aren't free in the PubMed?
If there is any way that you can obtain the article, yes, you can use any method to access the article. Mm-hmm. But you have to access the full article, because the next step is going to be to build our reference manager, which is, we're going to need the full article to access it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, Sci-Hub is, thanks for your question. Let me see. So sometimes it will also tell you what type of article is it, what type of paper is it. This is a review, for example. These are reviews. Let's look at heart failure, inflammation, and exercise. This looks interesting. See, so this is a review. It's published in 2025. And it includes these figures. Let me see. So what is this article about? It says heart failure is a condition characterized by high morbidity, mortality, and substantial health care burden in which inflammation plays a pivotal role. This review provides a comprehensive overview of inflammation and heart failure progression, highlighting the dynamic alteration in immune cell populations such as monocytes, macrophages. Okay, so it's describing the mechanisms. You see, furthermore, clinical relevance of inflammatory biomarkers in predicting disease prognosis is also discussed. Emerging evidence indicates that exercise intervention can enhance cardiac function by promoting the expression of anti-inflammatory cytokines and mitigating myocardial fibrosis, oxidative stress, and apoptosis. So future studies should investigate how exercise modulates critical inflammatory pathways, such as, then it mentions the mechanisms of the inflammasome and establish personalized exercise protocols tailored to patients' inflammatory profiles and disease stages, such insight may pave the way for innovative therapeutic strategies in heart failure management. See, so and then we come here and then we access the full article. It was published in the International Journal of Biological Sciences, and then we have these are the keywords. You see, remember that our string included heart failure as a mesh term. We have here heart failure as a mesh term. All right, so we'll pick it up. So this is a way, and then let's look at something else that is not a review. Here, this is a drug study. It says dapagliflozin protects against chronic heart failure in mice by inhibiting macrophages, mediate inflammation independent. Now, what do you think of including what type of research is research in mice? What is its classification?
Preclinical trials?
It's preclinical research, correct, or preclinical trials. It's preclinical whenever we're not testing it in humans. And what are the types of preclinical assays or the preclinical researches that we can perform? What are the subtypes of preclinical? Does anyone know? Has anyone heard of in vivo, in vitro?
In vitro, ex vivo.
And ex vivo, correct. So what does that refer to? What does that mean?
In vitro, it's like cellular cultures. Ex vivo, it's in live animals sometimes. And I forget the last name.
Ex vivo.
Ex vivo, it's in dead bodies sometimes.
It can be in dead bodies, or it can be in excised organs of living creatures. So yeah, correct. So in vitro or in vitro is in Spanish. Vitro is vidrio. It's same as like vitreous. Your vitriol, which is it's like a mirror. What we call mirror glass. It's glass. Mirror is like in vitro is like a glass. That's what it means. So in vitro, that's what it means. Like actually, for example, in assisted reproductive methods, we call it in Spanish in vitro insemination. Why? Because the insemination occurs in vitro objects. So that's where in vitro means. In vitro means that it's performed in a glass content or in a petri dish or in a beaker or anything of the sort. That's what in vitro is. And then we have in vivo, like Sebastian was saying. It was in vivo is in creatures, in live creatures such as mice. What other animals have you heard of that we perform clinical trials in vivo? What other animal models have you heard of?
Monkeys.
Monkeys.
Dogs, pigs.
Dogs, pigs, correct. Yeah, all of these. And then, for example, when we're culturing viruses, we use Reese monkeys' brains specifically. Why? Because viruses are intracellular obligatory organisms. They cannot live outside of the cell. So normally we cultivate those and we culture these in ex vivo in brains of these monkeys. Now there's a lot of bioethics involved into that, but we're not going to delve into that in this opportunity. But here, let's look at this. This is so dapagliflozin protects against chronic heart failure in mice, inhibiting macrophages mediated inflammation independent of SGLT2. So what is this? What is this paper about? Let me see. The specific mechanism of sodium glucose cotransporter 2 or SGLT2 inhibitor in heart failure needs to be elucidated. In the study, we use SGLT2 global knockout mice to assess the mechanism of SGLT2 inhibitor in heart failure. So they are repurposing the SGLT2 study from glucose control to heart failure, to a different condition. Then we have dapagliflozin ameliorates both myocardial infarction and transverse aortic constriction. So these is what we call the okay, I'm going to let you identify this. So induced heart failure. Global SGLT2 deficiency does not exert protection against adverse remodeling in both MI and TAC-induced heart failure models. Dapagliflozin blurs MI, TAC-induced. Okay, here, what do you identify? What is the if I told you identify the PICO framework for this work? What is the PICO? What is the P?
Patients with heart failure.
Is it patients with heart failure in this study?
No.
Probably mice.
It's mice with heart failure, right? It's mice with heart failure. And we use mice to assess. So this is a population. This is population is mice. What is the intervention?
The use of dapagliflozin.
The dapagliflozin, correct. Do we have a comparator? So we look at the methodology. If it's not clear, you go to the methodology. And do we have the outcome here?
Kinda, they say like it's blurred.
But what is the outcome?
The protective effects of dapagliflozin against heart failure are independent of the SGLT2.
So the outcome is the measurable outcome here are the protective effects of dapagliflozin against heart failure. That's the outcome. So if we look at the methods, let's look at the methods. See, sometimes it doesn't have methods, but it describes you see how they performed the study. Dapagliflozin relies on macrophage inhibition to exert cardiac protection. Let me see. So they don't have a methods section, which is not uncommon to find. They jump directly into the results. So let's look at the introduction. Here, in this study, we demonstrated that protective effect of dapagliflozin against heart failure are independent of SGLT2 inhibition by using 2 full knockout mice. So the specific population is this SGLT2 full knockout mice. By using single cell transcriptomics, this is Griffin's area for, or I'm not sure if you said proteomics or transcriptomics, but it's within Griffin's domain. It says from MI heart, we confirmed that predominant effects of dapagliflozin relied on macrophages and fibroblasts, especially concerning macrophages inhibition of heart failure. Anyways, this is an example of how we can start reviewing information. And now the other filter that is highly recommended is what we call the time frame filter. So you can either drag it here manually, or I highly recommend first initially to use a 5-year filter, because a 5-year filter is going to give you the most updated information. See how it changes from 2000 and something to almost 600 results. And you can see here the peak of when this topic was studied more. So, and this is just the first search string, right? This is just the first search string. Let me see. So let me see. Liver, heart crosstalk, contributions of inflammation to cardiometabolic failure with preserved ejection fraction. Let's try another string. Let's do something more like innate versus adaptive. So this was more of a generality, right? See, we have 22 results of information that delves directly into what we into the objective here. Is it specifically targets the 2 arms of the immune system to help you categorize the findings. So we want to categorize. This is a search that will help us categorize findings in the past 5 years. Now, since we have very small amount of results, we can also, let's expand it to 10 years. Let's see if that helps. Okay, we have almost double. That helps. So we have signaling, functions beyond editors, and regulating cardiac innate immunity and heart failure. Let me see. Susceptibility to infections and adaptive immunity in adults with heart failure, immune mechanisms and heart failure. This looks interesting. This is a review. Let's see. Pathophysiology of heart failure and frailty, a common inflammatory origin. Emerging roles for dendritic cells in heart failure. This is very interesting. Let's see. So let's look at this review. But anyways, we know the concept now. We understand the concept of how to look for the information, and you can categorize your strings based on what you want to look for. So I'll leave this one here so you can, oops, I was not supposed to close that one, but I did. Okay. All right, questions, comments, concerns? Everything's clear up to now. Any concept that someone needs to understand better? All right, this is important because part of the deliverables for this week is to obtain 10 to 15 articles, and we're going to pull them all together into one bibliography. So this is going to be, so in each one of your folders, we're going to upload we're going to create a file where we're going to include the references and the actual articles. We're going to start including the 10 to 15 articles, high quality articles that we found by using, feel free to use these mesh strings or create your own mesh strings if you, more examples here. Find information that is relevant. Remember to include a mix of primary and secondary research. Any questions about the deliverables?
Yes, I have a question. So you have to make like a document with all the bibliography of the articles we find, and also download them and put them in our file.
Correct. So we're going to upload here we're going to create a file. You can go right here and create a Google document, create and share, and then you can name it bibliography. or references. Whenever it loads. References or bibliography, however you want to call it. So we're going to list them, and we're going to list them in Vancouver format. We're going to look at what Vancouver format is. Vancouver format is also known as NLM, or National Library of Medicine. It's the same format. And aside from that, we are going to add them here, the actual documents, like the actual file with each article that has been downloaded. So we're going to upload here the article. So we all have access to the articles. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and the topic of them is just like the topic at hand that we are tackling. So anything related to heart failure and the immune dysregulation.
That's a very good question. So before the class ends, we're gonna agree on what the topic is gonna be, because before the class ends, we're gonna decide what our PICO framework is gonna be, and then based on that PICO that we all decide, we will look for information based on that PICO.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty, moving forward. Reference managers. Reference managers, this is a very interesting topic. Reference managers is because importance of hygiene citation, what we call hygiene citation, citation hygiene, sorry, is a critical habit for an aspiring researcher, for any aspiring researcher. So here we learn why organizing the references early on prevents a downstream of problems such as like misattributed citations or missing sources and inefficient writing workflows. This is collectively referred as what we call the reference hell. So there are tools that we're going to look at there are reference citation managers. Here we introduce what we call the most common ones are EndNote, Mendeley, and Zotero. So these two are highly recommended. These three are highly recommended reference management tools. They explain the advantages of the organizing like PDFs when generating citations automatically in different formats. We have APA, we have Vancouver, we have different formats. Normally, I recommend Vancouver. APA is also acceptable, but I highly recommend Vancouver is the most used for NLM, for the National Library of Medicine. And synchronize, it helps you. These tools help you synchronize libraries across the devices. So we want to stress out the importance that we all should begin constructing a clean and constructed folder system immediately within the drive that link the system to the reference manager. So we can be uploading the articles to the Google Drive, and we can link that Google Drive into one of the reference tools that we use. I have more experience with Zotero and Mendeley. We're going to look into an instructional video on how to use Zotero, but you can pick and choose whichever one you feel the most comfortable with. Zotero has a lot of interfaces with several other software and websites, so it's very easy to use. Mendeley as well. EndNote can be give or take, depends on what you're comfortable using. So the purpose is not just like administrative, but it's more like to learn. So organizing the sources effectively will start creating your system. There's like a mental map of the literature that you're collecting, and you can create, for example, sub folders such as folder for general cardioimmunology information or epidemiology of cardioimmunology. Then we could create another subtitle, another subfolder for innate immunity, or another subfolder for adaptive immunity, another subfolder for clinical trials, another subfolder for meta-analyses, primary, secondary. You can do whatever you want with this organization of the reference managers. So this prepares us for the demands of what's going to be producing a high quality narrative review, so that accurately reflects the state of the scientific knowledge. So for this part, we have EndNote as a generality. We have like EndNote is a robust paid reference management software. Zotero is free, it's an open source tool with excellent features. Mendeley is also known for its very strong PDF organizations and social network. And all three manage PDF automate citations, and they sync libraries. They all do it in very different ways. So let me take us to the instructional video. This is the Mendeley one. Sorry. So let me.
Excellent.
Sorry, it's taking a little bit to load.
Reference manager. I used it throughout my PhD and my postdocs. This is how you get started. The first thing you need to do is head over to mendeley.com and you very simply click download up here. Once you've clicked on download, then it takes you to this where you set up for desktop, and I'm running Windows, so I can download it for Windows. Now here's the thing, you need to do 2 more steps and get 2 more tools before this becomes truly useful, and we'll talk about those now. So first thing to do is download for Windows. Once you've downloaded for Windows, you click open. When you've actually installed Mendeley, you'll end up with this screen. So this is an Elsevier login screen. You need to create an account. If you don't have an account, it will prompt you to create one. But the first thing you do, whether you've got an account or not, is add your email. And it should be as easy as that. And then you should be able to get into Mendeley Reference Manager. You also access to a synced online version of this. If you don't have a desktop you can access, you can see here that you've got a sync. I'll show you that a little bit later. But here's the thing, before you do anything, before you upload any references and do anything, you need to go up here to tools. And here we've got the 2 tools you definitely need. The first thing you need to install is Mendeley Web Importer. That's for easily getting references into your library from the web, but it's not super easy because there's so many bugs. Mendeley, sort it out. It was so annoying. I'll show you that in a minute. And also we need to install Mendeley site for Microsoft Word, because that's where we'll be doing our writing for whatever we're writing and wanting to reference, and those are the tools you need. So first of all, let's start to install Mendeley Web Importer. So when you click on it, it will take you to here, Mendeley Web Importer. It's got 2,500 ratings and only 2.4 stars. And that's because you'll see in a minute there's so many bugs. But I've already installed it here. You'd say install, and then you get this little button up here, this little button, Mendeley. If you click it, it's meant to do stuff. But I just ended up with this aborted screen come up all the time. You're meant to be able to click on here, for example, and then import stuff. I click it, and nothing happens. I'm using Vivaldi, my favorite browser, but I've heard that it's quite sort of like buggy and finicky for all different types of browsers. So if you want to use this, I think Chrome is what I managed to get it to work on. So here it is. But look, here's the issue, is that it sort of like just decides what it wants to do. Sometimes it stays open, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know how to work it without it just sort of like doing its own thing. But here we go. I've navigated to one of my papers, which is online. And if I want to save this, all I have to do is click up here onto Mendeley Web Importer. If you're not signed in, I'll show you that. You actually need to sign in. Here we are, sign out. Let's hope it works. All right, all these things sort of like pop out. But there we are. This is what you get when you first open it. So let's sign in and let's fingers cross it works. So there we are. This is all of the details I've had saved before. Great. And I'm going to click sign in, and that should then put all of the references that I've got from my library, which we'll put in a minute, in here. Brilliant. But this is the thing is, okay, well, I've clicked up here, and here are all of the journal articles that you can actually import to your library from this page. It's taken all of these on the side and all sorts, but look, yeah, it's taken all of these and all of the ones that it's found on the page, which is brilliant. But ultimately, I only want this one, so I can click that and then click add. And then also you can sort of save it in different collections or different places. We'll talk about that in a minute. But that is the web importer. That is how you get this. The last thing you need to install is the Microsoft Word citing thing. So there's a couple ways you can do that. First of all, you can go up to tools. You can click install Mendeley site for Microsoft Word. I don't know why that's such a tongue twister. I need to try really hard. Once again, 1.9 stars. Ooh, it's not doing too well. But if you click here, it will actually take you to the Microsoft 365 sort of dashboard, which is the online version. I don't use that very much, but if you do, that's great. But I am going to use it in my desktop Word. Now, if you don't have it, you should go to Home and you need to click Add-ins. Once you click Add-ins, you get this Mendeley site. If it doesn't pop up here, I mean, I've got it here because it's added, but it was in popular add-ins. If you can't find it, you need to type in Mendeley, and then you'll see Mendeley's site will pop up, and then you literally just click add, and it all works nicely. Okay, once it's in, Then we can go to references and we get this button, Mendeley Cite, Cite with Mendeley. I'll close this to show you what it looks like before you've even clicked it. And then we click here, click, and we get all of our references available directly in Word. Okay, those are the 3 things you absolutely need to do before you even start installing references. One thing and a place I think you need to know about is the Mendeley.com. Oh, I've done something, cancel. Mendeley.com and then go to library. There we are. This is where your online library is stored. And so here we are, signed in today. This is the one I want. And there's my password. Great. And so not only do you have it on desktop, you have it online, and you can access that in Word for when you're writing. So this is the online version. You can see it's very, very similar to the desktop version, which is this. In fact, if I toggle it, there is no difference. No difference. Okay, this is going to confuse me. So I'm going to get out of this because I do not like that. Okay, here we go. We are now in Mendeley Reference Manager, and this is how you add references. There's a number of ways you can do it. I'll show you my favorite way first before we do anything. Throughout my PhD, the first thing I did was either go to File and say Watch Folder, and then you can go and find a folder that you will just dump your references into, and it will just automatically put any references, PDFs that you put in that folder into Mendeley. That's what I did. It was just like a no-brainer. I didn't have to go in and sort of do stuff all the time, but nonetheless, there are other ways to do it, but I like having a watched folder. So you click there, you can say watched folder, this is the one I want to watch, and then you click open, and it will just sync everything up. Very, very cool, very easy. That's what I like. Something that Zotero doesn't have natively. You can get a plugin, I think, but that is how I used it throughout my entire PhD and postdoc. Super easy. But there are also ways that you can add references. Okay, references up here, import files from computer, import folders. So if you want entire folders in there, that's what you do. And then you can also watch folder, like I said, and that's what I used primarily. Okay. Very, very simple to put references in. Let's have a look at the interface. Once you've got a few files in here, you've got all of this, which is just a really, I don't know, nice way of showing you all of your references, but it can get very, very long if they are all in the same collection. So I recommend you put collection and group. So if you've got one for your research group, you can put it there. If you've got different collections, i.e. you want to put references in different themes, like this is my transparent electrode theme, this is my OPV theme, this is my paper theme, all of those different collections can go in separate folders or different, collections is what they're called. And ultimately, this is what you've got. Super easy, very familiar to those that have come across from Zotero or use any sort of reference manager. These are the references you've imported. So we can click here, for example, and we get all of the information that we need about this journal. If anything isn't right, has imported incorrectly, all we have to do is click here and we can put in the information here. Very, very simple. And then we say get PDF. We've got an abstract which we can read. Collections, it's not in any collections at the moment. There's files that I've put up to it, which is, the pathway to high throughput PDF file that I've got. And the different identifiers. All of these identifiers in Scopus, DOI, ISSN, all of these are automatically populated. But if they are incorrect, this is where you would update all that information. Super easy, super cool, and we like it. You can also annotate stuff. You can also say you've got like a notebook so you can sort of start typing out your thoughts about particular references. I never really used that, but nonetheless, you can use it if you want. Another thing you can do is double click, go away. There we are. Double click on a reference, and if there is a PDF associated with it, it will pull it up, and you can see here there's all things you can do with like a normal PDF document. The one thing I like about it here there's a hand, so you can, whoa, that's great. It's a bit lame. Okay, and then here we can annotate. So we can highlight text and we can say a highlight rectangle. Let's go look at a highlight rectangle. Give me something to highlight here. I like this. Oh, highlight rectangle. Oh, I like that. Look at that lovely highlight rectangle. You can highlight text. Oh, look at that, highlight text. So that's how you do it. You can also change the colors. And you know, this is a good place if you just want to read a PDF that is, yeah, in your reference manager. Now, if I click this, there we are. It's gone and it's taken us back to where you can upload all of your references and you can see them. Great. So that is a very, very simple way of navigating through your references, adding them to Mendeley. But next thing is so important is how can you use Mendeley in Word? Okay, now we're in Word. Super easy way of citing. There's a couple of little tricks that you need to know about. Here is some text that I've written that I want to use my references to support and provide credibility to. So first thing we do is head to references, and then if you put it into Word, the Mendeley site app, then here we've got Mendeley site. Click this and it will pop up here. And you've got all of your references down the side. All we need to do if we want to reference something, let's say I want to put a reference in here, is I can go down and I can say, actually, I want to insert this one. I can insert more if I want. Let's have a look. I want to see, no, that's not a good one. That's not a good one. There are those two are the ones I want to insert. So I can insert 2 citations. Brilliant. And you can see you've got 1 and 2. Now, here's the thing. There's a couple things you need to do, and this is very important. The first thing is go to citation settings and change citation style. I've put ACS Nano. I found that earlier, but if there are other different types of styles that you want, you can click here, search for another style. So let's have a look. I want Nano, and let's see what we end up with. So I want ACS Applied Nanomaterials. Yes, that's what I want. Update citation style. And then the entire document will be formatted for that particular paper. Mwah, absolutely love it. So easy. But you'll notice one thing. You'll say, Andy, there's no bibliography or reference list at all. That's because you've got to add it manually. Once you've got a couple of references in there, you need to then go to references. Hang on, let me remember how to do this. There we are, insert bibliography. So click on these 2 dots up here and you've got insert bibliography. Click there and your bibliography will be inserted at your cursor location. Continue. Bonk. And then you can see this is where it gets put in. Brilliant, super easy. And as you type, as you change things, it will adjust and change and make sure that, you know, what you cite first comes up first. Then if you were to change things, it would change and it keeps it alive. So here we do have to put like references. There we are. Everyone's happy. And this is how you use it in Word. Super, super easy. I don't think there's anything else really to sort of note about this. It's just bare bones. Exactly what you need to do. There is more here, but you know, you probably wouldn't use these. Launch site tour if you get a little bit confused about what you're doing. But ultimately, this is everything you need to know. And using it in Word is very, very sort of simple. It just works. I really like it. I used it throughout my entire PhD. Great. If you're a reference manager nerd, the next thing you should check out is this video where I talk about how to use Zotero to its full potential, and it's got AI integrations that I absolutely love. Go check it out.
All right, so this was meant to be a Zotero tutorial, but it was a Mendeley. Sorry about that. But there is Zotero, or they're very similar. But you can pick or choose either or. I can share in the chat the tutorial, similar tutorial for Zotero. I've used both. EndNote is also useful, but it is less common. So I'm going to share in our chat the link for the Zotero tutorial. It's also like a quick 12-minute tutorial. So you can pick whichever you find the most useful. That is basically the foundation of the concepts of our lecture for this week. Now let's get into our practical part. see. All right. So let's look at the logistics and assignments for this week. First of all, we are going to so the shared drive. So if anyone has any trouble accessing the drive, let me know. I'm happy to help them. The week 1 milestone is we're going to find the 10 to 15 articles. And then this is going to be part of your program evaluation as the first milestone. So as the first step is before we start with our PICO, because that's the last part that we're going to do. We're going to agree on a PICO question. I have some indices that we can use. Let me see. Any questions, comments, concerns up to now?
Hi, I do have a question. Like, if you wanted to like research a little bit more about how does the immune dysregulation works in the cardiac failure, like what sources should we use? Like just to learn a bit more about it when we are researching for the articles.
Yeah, so you would look the best way to do it if you want to learn about so there are a couple of ways to do it actually. I like it's really, so remember when learning styles, have you heard about the learning styles like visual memory, auditive memory, and all that stuff? It's not really scientifically founded. There's more about you learn more from when information has meaning to you. So my answer would be, if you are more of an analytical person, and your information processing is based on big chunks of information and making your own analyses, I would say any physiology seminal work. If you're more of a applications type of learning, then or kinesthetic or something like that, you would choose more like, there are several videos and channels where you can look for. I can recommend a couple of YouTube videos of highly regarded scientists who study a lot these mechanisms. Ninja Nerd is a really good one to learn from. He's a physician assistant, but he's dedicated his life to teaching, as well as a couple other ones. I can recommend those. But the main source, if you want to look into your like more scientific sources, you can just create a search string, and look for them in PubMed or Google Scholar, and you're going to find all about the inflammasome and all the physiology behind the cardioimmunology. That's the topic, cardioimmunology. Those are the sources that I recommend. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions?
So for our 10 to 15 references, does it have to be between a specific time frame?
Yes. So ideally, we want that before the next class. I presume we can start. It's okay to start meeting, to assume that we can meet on Sundays regularly, or do you guys want to propose or talk about the time? That's a good question. Do you guys want to propose a different time and day of the week?
I think
Are you
same time
okay?
next week. I think same time next week is okay.
Okay. Is everyone in agreement with 2 p.m. on Sunday?
Yeah, I agree as well.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Awesome. So we can schedule that. So ideally, we want that to be ready before the next class, because the next class we're going to start writing introduction. And the next class is, what we're going to do is, in the first 30 minutes, we will decide which topics, which articles are we keeping, and then based from that, we're going to do the united. We're going to create here what we call the bibliography. This is a collective bibliography, so it's going to be the digital bibliography. This is for everyone. So ultimately, we will upload, when we decide which articles to keep, we will put them here. We will create a copy here. In orange. So yeah, we want all those articles done by and sorted by before the next class. All right, and finally, let's create our ongoing draft. This is going to be our ongoing draft. So let's start with our PICO question. So the topic is immune dysregulation and heart failure. This is our core topic. So let's start with our PICO. What are you proposing to study in our PICO sessions? So what do we want to learn from our PICO? And this can be our initial PICO question. It can be that after we've reviewed the literature by next week, we decide that the most relevant is something different. Like we can adjust it as we move on. But this is for us to initially start collecting those articles. What population do we want to study?
I think it would be adults with heart failure.
Agreed.
Okay. Adults with generally just heart failure, or do we want to classify anything and adults of any age or anyone above 18 or?
We have to classify the age, maybe 18 to 80 or 75.
And is there a clinical relevance reason why would you like to pick 75 or 80 years old, or we're just gauging right now? What do you think?
For me, I chose a broad topic just to see what's out there, and we can narrow it afterwards if there's a specific area that articles are focused on.
Sounds good. That sounds like a good plan. All right. And what is the exposure or intervention that we want to study? It can be more than one for now. We can all like look for different information and agree on it. Think of gaps. Think of what brought you to study this topic. What do you want to know about cardioimmunology that you think it's a good avenue to explore?
I think broadly right now, we can just focus on the medical, surgical, or preventative sides of it, and then just go from kind of just move from those three branches. I think we'll have enough time and space to write about each of them if we'd like to as well. So it might be worth exploring all three.
So if we have to narrow down into, so what would be your intervention? You said something about prevention.
Yeah, I'd like to emphasize prevention at some point in the paper. I feel like that's an important component of this, how heart disease and immune dysregulation coincide, and how preventative medicine ties into that. I think that's an important component.
So preventive.
Slow down the progression of heart failure.
What was that? Sorry.
Medications that can slow down the progression of heart failure.
Okay, medications that slow down heart failure. Okay. I'm reading through my notes because I have some proposals here. One of the, let's see, was one of the topics that I had searched for was the neuroimmune axis, the brain-spleen connection, through the splenic nerve that comes from through the splenic nerve and the vagus nerve. Your nervous system can stimulate your spleen, and when it stimulates your spleen, it stimulates your immune system and can generate. How's that related? Think of gaps. We're thinking of gaps. How's that related to cardiac inflammation? What I have here about that was it's like a newer, highly mechanistic gap. So this is a gap in mechanisms, and is inception or interoception of the immune system by the brain. The gap is that some evidence suggests that the brain senses cardiac stress and modulates the immune response via the autonomic nervous system and the spleen via the cholinergic anti-inflammatory pathway. However, there's no precise neural circuits that have been described that recruit the splenic immune cells. This is one of the topics that I had seen. The other topic was the immune checkpoint inhibitors, that I think this is encompassed right here in the medications. The immune checkpoint inhibitors, for example, that treat cancer but can cause myocarditis. There's a major gap in that literature. There's a major gap that is whether these checkpoints, the checkpoints are PD1, PDL1. They regulate the inflammation in standard heart failure, like ischemic or non-ischemic in patients without cancer. Now, the gap is that emerging data suggests that immune checkpoints like PDL1s might be upregulated in the heart after myocardial infarction as a protective brake on inflammation. So the focus of that one would be investigative measuring soluble immune checkpoints, such as SPDL1s, that's a soluble PDL1s, could serve as biomarkers for heart failure severity or prognosis in the general heart failure population, not just in cardiac oncology. So this would be taking something from oncology out from oncology and into general heart failure. These are, I might write it here. I'm just going to add the immune checkpoint inhibitors. These are some avenues, inhibitors. These are some avenues that we can explore.
Or maybe some biomarkers, immune biomarkers.
Biomarkers like what?
Interleukin 1, maybe, or elevation of biomarkers.
Okay, so and if we're talking about intervention, how can biomarkers, how can you frame that how can you frame the biomarkers in the intervention aspect?
Let me think about.
Probably serial tracking could lead to earlier detection, I guess.
Can you write that? I'm not sure if I'm understanding what you mean. You can, if you want to access the document, because this is for example, this is one example that I had thought about. Population with the, say, patients with heart failure without cancer. So this would be patients like ischemic and non ischemic. And then the intervention would be the exposure that we would be talking about is the levels of immune checkpoints, such as PD1s, PD L1 and TIM3s. This is so we can have just an example. It doesn't have to be this. A comparison could be patients with low checkpoint expressions levels. Points expression levels. And the outcome can be correlation with size, hospitalization rates, and prognosis. This could be something related about that. That's like an example. The other ones I had mentioned. The immunomodulation in early stages, in early stage heart failure in patients with acute myocardial infarction. For example, this is another example. This is a patient with acute myocardial infarction. Or early stage heart failure, with an intervention being a phase-specific immunomodulation. Like, for example, targeting the inflammation after the reparative state. The outcome, the comparator can be early versus early or indiscriminate. Early or indiscriminate immunosuppression. Versus standard of care, and outcome as preservation of wound healing versus prevention of adverse remodeling or fibrosis or fibrosis, like late. These are some examples of the PICO questions that I had thought about. This that would like encompass immune dysregulation and heart failure specifically. But what do you guys think? What elements? What do we want to start looking into our components for? What do you wanna do? What are you thinking?
I don't know, maybe I thought about like comparing like preserved versus like low ejection fraction and the relation between the immune system. But
What do you mean with that?
like if there's like an immune dysregulation that like makes it go faster or like slows down the progression of like preserved versus low ejection fraction. I don't know if there's like a gap in that area.
How would you frame that in a PICO?
Maybe like the people be like adults with preserved heart failure. preserved fraction, heart failure with preserved ejection fraction.
Mm-hmm. What is the intervention that you want to test?
Maybe somewhere along the line that I can't remember the name, the person who said it, but like the medications that slow down heart failure, maybe.
Mm-hmm. So medications that slow heart failure. Mm-hmm. Is there any particular medication that we're thinking about?
No, not really. I don't know much about this area, honestly.
Okay, that's okay.
The comparison would be the adults with heart failure with low ejection fraction.
So you want to test, okay. So what we're doing there is more, it's more of a so a comparison is more, it sounds like we want to test these interventions, which intervention is superior? Or it sounds like how do medications, like what is the goal of the studying of, what would be the outcome? What would be your outcome? How would you measure the outcome?
Like the reduction of hospitalization and mortality, morbidity and mortality.
So in that aspect, so that sounds more relevant for a systematic review, because we would be comparing outcomes specifically about, yeah. So if we want to remember that a narrative review is just like a summary of the information that we found. It can be framed as a narrative review, but it would be very tricky. It would be very tricky. So but we can write it down, and we can see. These are ideas and avenues that we can start looking into. Medications that slow down heart failure, and so a comparison would be adult with fear and affected ejection fraction and compromised So in this case, how do we tie in the immune dysregulation in this? Is it an immunomodulator medication?
Yeah, like maybe some immunomodulator that could.
How about standard of care plus placebo?
In where?
In the comparator.
In which one? In this one?
In the first one, like.
The first one.
Yeah.
Standard of care plus placebo. Mm-hmm. And what outcome do we want to choose?
Hospitalization rates.
Mm-hmm.
Quality of life measures.
Mm-hmm.
And reduce mortality.
Reduce mortality. Okay, so I think with these we have enough avenues to explore. We have an idea. So we have 4 potential avenues right now. We could mix and match them. We can work in this? Is this enough for everyone to pick and choose what to look for?
Sorry,
Or
I
does
can't
someone
see
have
the
any?
screen.
Sorry, you can't see the screen?
For me now.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Let me fix that.
Actually, it's okay. I found the document.
Okay, but let me make sure the screen is shown. Can you see the screen now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So how about we start researching, we start looking for information for these topics, and then when we find, and then we'll review the information next week and agree which one is what is enough. And then we'll decide what's going to be our final PICO, and then based on that is what we're going to decide on the final avenue of what we're going to do. Does this work for everyone?
Yes.
So for this week, all we have to do is just find 10 to 15 high quality or articles that we believe that to be included in the final narrative review, or
Yeah, 10 to 15 technically for like if you're doing one one of these four options, 10 to 15 articles is more than enough. If you're gonna research more than one of these, I would suggest at least 10 for each one that you research. And then add those. We can classify those or however you wish, but yeah, that's the deliverable for this week. Just find it. Basically decide what is it that your literature search guided you to make a decision about. Yeah, so what is it that we want to research? This week is looking for articles and decide what do we want to research.
okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
To confirm, yeah, I just wanted to confirm the first one. We're comparing immunomodulators with standard of care, right? Because there's like preventive, and so I was a bit confused.
Yeah, I think the immunomodulators can be immunomodulators plus standard of care versus standard of care plus placebo.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
All right. All right. Questions, comments, concerns, confessions before we kick it off. All right. If anybody has any other further question and they don't remember right now, we can talk about it during the week. I encourage you to send your questions to the chat so everyone has access to questions. So everyone has access to questions. Sometimes we have very similar questions. And I highly recommend we do that. If nobody has any further questions, guys, it was a deep pleasure to meet you. I'm very excited to work together. Hopefully by next week we have more people joining in the cameras on cameras, and we can interact more interpersonally. And thank you very much. We will meet again next week at 2 p.m. on Sunday. So enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Appreciate you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.